Hi, my name is Gavin Ruane, and I'm a student in CPE 233, Section 7, and this is my Lab Assignment K submission video using the Basis 3 board. So for this project, students were tasked with creating a circuit that would find the GCD, the greatest common denominator or divisor, of a number. These numbers were provided to students and they were stored in two ROM files, and our circuit would read the numbers from those ROMs, determine if they were equal. If they were equal, no GCD comparison would happen, but if they were equal, the circuit would find the GCD of these two numbers, and then it would store it in RAM. This circuit has two modes. In one mode, it will actually find the GCD of the number, and then of the two numbers, excuse me. And then in the other mode, this circuit will display the values of the RAM. So when you're done actually calculating the GCD, you can see what the GCDs are because these are stored in the RAM. Additionally, in this project, we use some different inputs and outputs. So for inputs, I used the center button to act as kind of the button to get everything started. It's called the Go button in my project. I also used, well, that's the only input actually, because our number inputs are given in ROM memory files. But for outputs, I use the 7-segment display. So in one mode, we'll kind of split the display in half. We'll have one number on one side and a number on the other side. And then in the other mode, we'll just have one number. And then finally, the other output is the 4 rightmost LEDs. So these ones right here, and I'll go through this when I'm actually demoing, but just to say it broadly. These LEDs will display the current address of whatever you're looking at. So in the display RAM mode, it's going to display the current address of the RAM, and then in the finding GCD mode, it's going to display the current address of the two ROMs. And that's it for the overview of this project. Now stay tuned for the demo. Okay, so here we are. I'm going to demo this actual project on the board. I've programmed the board using Vivado, and now let's get started. So before we actually do anything, I just want to point out two things. So here's my little button map. I've mapped the buttons available here to this little picture right here, and I'm just showing that only the center button is used in this project, and this corresponds to the Go button input. So when this button is pressed, it's either going to go into finding GCD mode or go into display RAM mode, depending on what state you're in. And then I also put an LED map. So as you can see, we're only using 4 LEDs. You'll see them light up right now, and I'll explain why in just a minute. So the leftmost one corresponds to the 3rd bit in the LED output, and the rightmost corresponds to the 0th bit. Okay, so now you may be wondering what's going on right now. So in the first state, which is also what happens when you're done with the entire circuit, it's going to go back to the state. It's just going to display the contents of the RAM continuously. It's going to cycle through. And as you can see, it's cycling through right now. The address is changing and it's outputting them on our LEDs. But right now we don't have anything in the RAM, so it's just going to be 0 for everything, which makes sense. So let's actually do something exciting and let's get started. I'm going to press this button, and now we're in the next state. This is where it's going to start seeing if they're equal, and it's also going to get the GCD values of the two numbers that it's comparing in the in the ROMs, excuse me. So as you can see, there's actually 2 sides to this display. It's split up into 2 different counts. So the left side is going to tell us when there are valid GCDs, how many times it found GCDs between the 2 numbers it's comparing. And the right side is going to tell us how many times it found values that were equal to each other. And in this case, it's just going to count. It's not going to actually calculate any GCDs. And as you can see, it was going through the LEDs, going through the addresses as it was counting and calculating. And now they're all full, which means it's finished going through every single address in both of the ROMs. And finally, one more thing, it is keeping the values that it counted on the display. It's not going to erase them until the user actually takes any action. So let's take some action, but before, let me just explain one thing. So this means we had 7 successful GCD finds and 9 values that were equal to each other. Okay, let's get started. Let's go to the next state. So I'm going to press this button again, and now you can see it's going to cycle through the RAM as evidenced by the cycling of the addresses And it's also going to show us values. So it's going to cycle through the values on the display and print them out for us. You'll also notice that it's just going to put 0 for a while. This is because there just weren't any values to fill in for the RAMs there. These are just empty spaces. Because if you recall, we only found 7 GCDs out of 16, I believe, 16 total possible GCDs. So it's going to display them all, it's going to cycle through, and then once it's done, it's still going to keep going through the RAM, but there's just nothing there. So that's why it's 0. So that's pretty much it for the demo. And of course, refer to my report for diagrams, explanations, code, and a state diagram, of course. But that's it for the visual demo. So thanks for watching.